I watched every movie, music video, and short film on the directed by section of Denis Villeneuve's IMDB. This is because his newest movie, Dune Part Two, is about to come out. This means that film fans, as well as those who just want to stare at Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, will be heading to theaters. So in preparation for this, I watched every project Villeneuve has ever directed. I'm going to go through each project, whether it's a movie, music video, or short film. I'll share what I thought about it and what it was about. Once I get through all that, I will do two rankings. One of all of Villeneuve's projects that aren't feature films, so his short films and music videos. Then I will rank all of his movies, including all of the non-English language films he directed that many of his American fans might have skipped over. So if all you know about Dune 2 is that it stars Timothée Chalamet's jawline, then this video will get you up to date on one of today's best working directors. But who is Denis Villeneuve? As a quick bio, he was born in Gentilly, a village in Quebec, Canada. He became interested in film at a young age and would make short films in high school. He studied science for a little bit after high school, but ultimately decided he wanted to pursue film, which he studied at the University of Quebec at Montreal. After finding success in filmmaking competitions, he was able to work with the National Film Board of Canada, which is where his professional filmmaking career began. But before I get into this career, I want to establish a few things. First being that I will not be spoiling any of these movies, so if you haven't seen any of them, you can still watch this video and enjoy them. As a quick background of how I discovered Denis Villeneuve's movies is I watched his 2016 film Arrival in theaters, and I loved it, and I just slowly started researching him and his movies and becoming a bigger and bigger fan of his. However, when I started the process of making this video, I had only seen his films from after he started making English language movies in 2013. So all of his short films, music videos, and full-length movies that he made between 1994 and 2012 are all new to me. He started his career by directing the 1994 short film Rewind, Fast Forward. Villeneuve's first available short film is an interesting one. It has a lot of elements that will feel familiar to his American fans, while having a completely different technical style and look. The story is a little bit hard to describe, but in basic terms, it's about a photographer who has to go to Jamaica for work, and after his car breaks down, he is forced to stay with locals in Jamaica in a village called Trenchtown. The visuals of the movie are interviews he has with the locals of this town and a few other outside interviews about Jamaica and Jamaican culture. However, the narrative is framed by a conversation playing over top the footage between the photographer and an unknown person.
You decide to do what you're supposed to do. Shoot pictures.
Il faut que j'apprenne à désapprendre.
Photography gives you the opportunity to get closer and closer. This man may be the key to your problem. You decide to follow him.
Je m'enfonce et le suis.
The person is guiding him through the trip as they rewind and fast forward through this footage discussing his journey and what it all meant. Villeneuve's movies have a certain connective tissue between them. This is tonal, but also in terms of the narratives he writes and chooses to adapt. One of the big connective themes is a search for identity. He tells a lot of stories that deal with moral and spiritual journeys as the main characters' identities are tested through their experiences. And his interest in these stories goes all the way back to the beginning of his career, starting with this film. I thought the way the story was edited, the writing of the narration, and how engagingly it develops its themes make this film a very singular experience. While at times the unorthodox nature of the narrative and how it was told left me a little bit confused, for the most part it was a very enjoyable watch. After the short, Villeneuve made 4 music videos that came out between 1994 and 95. This started with him directing the 1994 music video for the Daniel Bellinger song Ons Ds. Music videos are interesting. They're kind of a superfluous art form, but many great filmmakers have started in the music video space. I think most music videos are pretty forgettable, but every once in a while I see one that's really impactful or really sticks with me. Unfortunately, this and the 3 other music videos that Villeneuve directed all kind of suck. When I started this video, I kind of liked it. It felt experimental as the edit paired visuals with the face of the singer singing the song on screen at the same time. It wasn't blowing my mind or anything, but I thought it was okay. But then the guy got on a unicycle and I couldn't stop laughing. Also, they kept on speeding up the footage of him on the unicycle, so it kind of looked like something out of the Saw franchise. And this begins a trend of a subject I'm going to be talking about a lot in this video. I set out to make a video on one of my favorite directors, and I wanted it to be substantive and analytical, but then I started watching his early work and a lot of it was unintentionally hilarious. Or intentionally funny. I don't speak French, so I can't really tell, but the point is a lot of it's really hard to take seriously. And this is because of just how dated everything looks. All that being said, the lighting and choice of location both aren't that bad, but I think the edit looks super dated. I do like that Villeneuve continued experimenting with abstract visuals, but this, to me, felt more funny than anything else. Next, Denis directed the 1995 music video for the Kevin Parent song Lisette. When I saw how similar this music video was to the first one, I started getting really nervous about making this video. I kind of started imagining a world where I had to watch 8 hours of weird, abstract, visual collages that don't really have a plot, and all of them set to mediocre French music. This is kind of better than the first music video, but not by a lot. The two are exactly the same in style and structure. However, I think this one has more interesting images than the first. The choice to have the whole thing in black and white adds a cohesive look to the music video that the other one lacked. Although this brings up one complaint I had, which is about the animated segment at the end of the video. And the animation I thought was cool, it looked interesting, but it was in color, which I know might be like a small complaint for most people, the fact that it was in color and the rest of the music video is black and white, but I don't know, I just found it to be really visually jarring that he broke the visual style that he had set up throughout the whole beginning of the music video. What I learned about Kevin Parent from this video is that he's basically the French-Canadian Creed. All my complaints are basically the same about this one. The use of still images, the dated look, and having multiple elements collaged on screen at the same time got really old really fast. And I really just want to see an actual music video, not a visual collage. For his next project, Villeneuve teamed up yet again with Kevin Parent and directed the music video for his song Boomerang. All I really wanted going into this music video was something shot and edited like a music video after seeing the weird visual collages for the last 2 videos. And then I saw the music video and I realized I didn't know what I want. My notes from when I watched this start with, what the fuck did I just watch? The music video is insane and hilarious, but again, I can't tell if that is intentional or not, and it kind of feels like it isn't super intentional, but I can't tell because I don't speak French. So far, if I was rating the music videos based on how funny I found them, this would be number 1 by far. I do like that he stopped just making video collages and made something that actually looked like a music video, and it felt a little bit more cohesive because of it. But the crazy camera moves and the dated style make it impossible to take anything seriously. I think at one point a man gets crucified on a boomerang, which I have so many questions about. His next project and the last music video in his catalog was him directing the music video for Cirque du Soleil's Kurar. I think like 90% of this video is going to be me mispronouncing French terms. I did not know that Cirque du Soleil made music. I kind of just thought they did like stunts and acrobatics and shit. This is kind of like finding out that like Ronald McDonald dropped a mixtape. Oh wait. Anyway, this video might be the strangest of them all, which is really saying something. Again, I don't speak French, so I couldn't read the words that kept popping up on screen. But from what I gather, the story is about 2 robots who eat cereal made of rusty screws. One of them wants to dance, and then the other one like has a heart attack and dies. And after the other one dies, the one who wanted to dance tries dancing, and then like in a spiritual vision or experience, the dancing robot is visited by female Mr. Clean, who dances with him. And then everything catches on fire, and then the music video ends. I think this is a visual representation of my last two brain cells chilling in my brain, eating rusty cereal. In this analogy, female Mr. Clean is the idea to make a YouTube channel. I would love it if somebody who spoke French was able to tell me if the music video was just as confusing for them, even if they can read the words on screen, because I don't know how much these words are going to be helping me understand what the fuck's going on in this. With all that being said, this is surprisingly the best music video he made, like by far. I like the little narrative, and I like the makeup, costumes, and set. It was still dated, and it still kind of looked like shit, but it kind of looked like shit in an endearing way. And after this wonderful music video, we finally get to Denis Villeneuve's first full-length movie, kinda. The next thing on his IMDb is the 1996 movie Cosmos, partially written and directed by Denis Villeneuve. While this is the first feature film he worked on, Cosmos is not Villeneuve's first movie. The movie is made up of 6 short stories, and the narratives of each of these short stories varies wildly, but they're all connected because someone from each story interacts with the same cab driver on the same day. And Villeneuve directed one of these 6 stories. It's a very interesting film, but what surprised me is that the section I liked most wasn't the one that Villeneuve directed, but I liked the overall idea of the movie, and I think a lot of the conversations that the characters have about life and purpose and our place in the world were really cool. The performances were good and grounded, some better than others. I will say though, the acting in Villeneuve's section is particularly good, which is another testament to his ability to direct actors. But yeah, this whole movie was pretty cool. With multiple directors, it could have gotten visually confusing as the styles clashed, but I like that the whole thing is shot in black and white, and it makes it all really work together. And sometimes the style was a bit dated and took me out of the film, but what else is new? It's kind of been happening with all these projects. Villeneuve followed this up by writing and directing the 1999 film August 32nd on Earth, his actual first movie. This movie is about a woman who, after nearly dying in a car accident, decides that she wants to have a baby. So she convinces her friend to impregnate her, but her friend secretly has feelings for her. When I read the synopsis for this movie, I thought it sounded like a really interesting concept for a drama, and it is, but I felt that the execution of that concept was a bit lackluster. I think the movie did peak at the beginning. I liked how the first scene was shot and edited. It was mostly simple visual storytelling, and I was very engaged with it. However, the simple visual storytelling kind of turned into one of the things I disliked most about this movie. The concept of this movie is ripe with personal and moral implications that would make for very intriguing dialogue. However, except for one scene at the very beginning of the film, these ideas are never explored verbally. I do like it when stories can be told in a mostly visual manner that's very impressive, but to me this felt more empty than anything else. The look of the film was at times dynamic and visually pleasing, but it wasn't interesting enough to carry the whole movie. In the beginning, I really related to both the characters, and I found them really compelling and easy to root for. However, as the movie went on, I became more and more disconnected from both of them because neither of their problems were ever discussed with the dialogue. I also found the ending to just kind of leave a bad taste in my mouth. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of gross. But after this, he wrote and directed Maelstrom from the year 2000. When I read the synopsis for this film, a synopsis that was poorly written and super misleading, it sounded a lot like August 32nd on Earth, which worried me because I didn't really like that movie. Luckily for me, this was nothing like that. Maelstrom is about a woman who's kind of a mess, who, while drinking and driving, hits a man crossing the street and does a hit and run and kills him, and it's about her living with that guilt. Maelstrom is a very unique film from the very beginning. The narrator of this film is a wise fish who keeps getting killed and replaced by the same wise fish in this weird, fucked up Lord of the Rings landscape. And I really loved this aspect. The practical effects looked amazing. Also, this opening kind of reminded me of the beginning of Eraserhead, and I think there are more similarities there, but without spoiling things, I'm going to leave it at that. The first half for me was really interesting in one way, and then the second half was just as interesting, but in a completely different way. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I will say one complaint I have with the film is that it doesn't feel super cohesive by the time it ends. That being said, I love the dramatic conundrums that the writing puts these characters into. I think the first half might be a little bit better at connecting these conundrums to the movie's main theme, but the second half wasn't too dissonant that it ruined the film for me in any way. I really like the main performances in the film, and I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. Marie Jose Cruz really sells the distress that her character goes through and sells the concept of the movie well. In comparison to Villeneuve's last film, August 32nd on Earth, this is a big step up in the look. The cinematography was really nice throughout this movie. Both daytime and nighttime shots were really nicely lit, and I think the slightly desaturated look really worked well for the tone of the movie. I think what I like most about this movie is that it really went for it. The concept, the look, every element was as weird as it needed to be and still felt cohesive. Is this a perfect movie? No. But I do think that this is an interesting point in Villeneuve's career where he is coming into his own and becoming the director that we know and love today. After 2 feature films, Villeneuve returned to short films to direct 120 Seconds to Get Elected in 2006. Not to bring up Eric Andre twice in the same video, but have you guys seen this?
Words, punchline.
You did it! You broke comedy down to its bare essential!
If this is a satirization of the structure of comedy, this short film, 120 Seconds to Get Elected, feels like a satirization of the structure of political speeches. It explores the way these politicians talk during these speeches, and I like that it highlights these buzzwords that this politician is using by showing them on screen and highlighting them with a dramatic sound effect.
Nature is the only thing that don't need money. Happiness is richness. Now, do you want to be rich now? Then vote for me.
I think this movie communicates the balancing act that is politics, or really the balancing act that is trying to have everyone like you. When the politician goes too far in one direction, you can watch him backtrack and try and basically be the most common denominator for the most amount of people and please everyone. But yeah, I liked it. It's funny, it's short, and it's simple. After this, he directed Next Floor in 2008, another short film. And this is a really fun little film. It's a great satirization of the greed of the upper class. I really like the cinematography and the overall look of the film. The green color palette was really nice to look at. I also want to mention the sound design, which I first noticed when it made eating sound grotesque and unnatural. But so much of this movie working comes down to sound design and having sound design communicate narrative information to the audience, because this is a mostly wordless short film. It's almost completely visual. In this era of Villeneuve's career, I think his best work is his simplest, and this goes for this short film, but also for his next full-length movie. That movie being Polytechnique from 2009, which he wrote and directed. Polytechnique is a film about a school shooting that is fueled by hatred towards women and feminism, and it's a depiction of what that experience is like to go through. As I said, I think this movie's biggest strength is its simplicity. You know how I complained about August 32nd on Earth not having enough dialogue? Well, this is an example of a film that does not overutilize dialogue, and it is to the film's benefit. It's a very visual story, therefore unnecessary talking would hinder the film more than anything else. Speaking of the visuals, I really liked the cinematography. I thought the black and white looked really nice. There were just a lot of cool visual ideas, like the use of sideways and upside down shots, adding visual tension to the frame. Also, the amount of handheld shots during the more intense and violent scenes really communicate how chaotic an experience like that would be. And the setting of the film also added a lot to the look. The amount of snow, the snowfall, and the snow-covered landscapes really looked nice in the black and white. I also thought the film was very good at subjective filmmaking and showing different characters' perspectives, as large portions of the movie are shown from 3 different characters' points of view. Speaking of the characters, I thought the acting was all really solid. I think the fact that I haven't had much criticism towards acting is a testament to Villeneuve's talent as a director and as someone who casts his movies well. This movie is 1 hour and 17 minutes long, and I think a lot of my praise comes down to the fact that it's a very tight movie that wastes no time in telling its story. His last movie before making the jump to English language films was 2010's Ons Ds. Throughout my exploration of Denis Villeneuve's early filmmaking career, I've been kind of just waiting to see the emergence of the filmmaker who I know, the emergence of the filmmaker who changed the way I see film as a medium. While it was interesting seeing some of his early work, a lot of it just felt so far from the refined technical abilities that Villeneuve is known for today. And I think this film is really where he came into his own and refined his technical craft. This movie is about a journey that a woman goes on after her mother dies and leaves stipulations in her will, forcing her children to go and find a long-lost brother and long-lost father of theirs that neither of them knew was still alive. This movie is so captivating. I've been taking notes as I watch the movies, and this movie has one of the shortest note pages. Not because I didn't have anything to say about the movie or the craft behind it, I just wanted to watch the story unfold. The direction really went to a whole new level in this film. The whole cast was great, but in particular, Lubuna Azabal and Melissa Desormeaux Paulin. Okay, I give up on pronouncing these names. The acting of these 2 actors was phenomenal, and I'm just gonna put their names on screen because I'm so tired of butchering French names. This video has made me feel kind of like Brad Pitt in Inglourious Bastards. Anyway, both the main characters in this film lead the movie with such empathetic human performances, and performances that are enhanced by Villeneuve's direction. This movie has so many great examples of how to immerse an audience in a character's perspective, again highlighting Villeneuve's talent for subjective filmmaking. I also want to point out how well written and well constructed the plot is. One of the things that Villeneuve's movies do best is withhold information from the audience for the perfect amount of time, as well as finding interesting ways to reveal this information to the audience. This is something that is ever present in his movies that made me fall in love with him as a filmmaker, and this movie feels like him really refining that skill. Next, Villeneuve made the 2011 short film Empirical Study on Persistence of Sound. Empirical Study on the Influence of Sound on Retinal Persistence. Empirical Study on the Influence of Sound on Retinal Persistence was his next short film made in 2011. Maybe this is just because I'm not the bravest person, but this movie unsettled me so much. I was just hanging out in my room trying to get through all these films, and it was late. I had the lights off, and I put this movie on screen, and it scared me so much. The flashing visuals, the aggressive sounds in the background, it was honestly terrifying. If the point of this short film was to unsettle you, I'd say this is a great short film. But yeah, it just kind of made me nauseous. I hated watching it, and it was even worse than his first 2 music videos. Apparently, the purpose of this film, which is just flashing visuals and the worst sounds you've ever heard, the purpose of it is somehow through watching it and staring at the screen of flashing colors, you see some sort of visual pattern. It's like a visual illusion, but I didn't see shit, and the two unfortunate souls that I forced to watch this film didn't see anything either, so this was terrible. He followed this up with Rated R for Nudity, another short film from 2011. This movie was a real delight after the last short film, though I don't think that's a big compliment because I think anything would be. I really like the concept for this movie, but like so much of his other early work, I feel like I would have gotten so much more out of it if I spoke French. The movie was this narration paired with visuals of the words he was saying and some images, and some of the words were in English and some were in French, so I don't know if they were intentionally contrasting or just saying what the narration was saying. The movie, according to the movie, is supposed to hypnotize those who watch it, and I know this is probably going to sound like something that someone who was hypnotized would say, but I'm pretty sure it didn't hypnotize me. But it's a fun little story. It engaged me okay, and it was definitely better than the bullshit he made before this. Fuck that other movie. Next, he directed the 2013 film Prisoners. With this film, Villeneuve made his jump over to English language American cinema, and he did it with one of his best movies yet. I really love this movie. I think this is maybe my third time seeing it. The story is about the disappearance of two little girls, and we follow the father of one of these little girls and a detective as they both use their own methods to try and find them. The two central performances from Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal are fantastic, and they're great in very distinct ways. Jackman plays a middle America father with very traditional values. Why this role is so interesting is it takes this very straight-laced character and sees how far his morals can be stretched. And Gyllenhaal is playing a loner detective. He's very motivated, and the movie kind of hints at a dark past for the character that could be what motivates him. This character has an unwavering determination and seems to be fueled by his ability to do his job well and achieve his goals. And where the role gets interesting is seeing how this character reacts when his goals seem unattainable. And I haven't even mentioned the fantastic supporting roles. Paul Dano, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard, and Melissa Leo all really sell this movie. And again, a lot of the credit for the consistent high quality of performances in these movies should go to Denis Villeneuve and his ability to direct actors. Prisoners is well shot also, with a visual identity that isn't flashy or distracting, but one that serves the story well. This is the first time Villeneuve worked with possibly the best cinematographer working today, Roger Deakins. And I also want to talk about how well written and structured this film is. The script by Aaron Guzikowski lived on the Hollywood blacklist for a while before being picked up for production, a process that movies like Juno, The Revenant, and Slumdog Millionaire all went through. And the script has really good dialogue and it develops its themes really nicely. But yeah, this is a great movie and I keep returning to it. In 2013, he directed his second English language film, Enemy. Enemy is about a man who finds a doppelganger of himself, someone who looks just like him, and the moral implications of that and the implications of it on their day-to-day lives. I remember having mixed feelings about this movie when I first saw it, and I still have mixed feelings about it now. I do love puzzle movies. To me, a puzzle movie is a movie that makes it super clear that its story is metaphorical or allegorical. What's fun about these movies is that while you're enjoying the story, you're also given the fun challenge of trying to figure out what the director or writer is trying to say through the film. However, these movies are a bit of a balancing act. This is because the director has to make a puzzle that is intriguing as well as a story that resonates. I think my main issue with this film is no matter how intriguing the puzzle may be to me, I just didn't resonate with the story in the same way I have with his other movies. Though the film isn't without merit, this is going to be the second movie in a row where I praise Jake Gyllenhaal's acting. He plays two characters in this film, And it's a credit to his ability as an actor that the film never gets confusing, because you can tell who he is moment to moment just by the way the characters hold themselves or walk through spaces. I also really like the color grading and cinematography. The color grade went full on in the color yellow, but I think it works really nicely because they develop the color scheme of black and yellow throughout the film with props and clothing, not just the grade or the cinematography. Anyway, this movie is fine, it's fun to look at, but it didn't leave much of an impression on me. Next, he directed the 2015 film Sakario. The plot of Sakario is about the American government fighting with the Mexican drug cartels and what that fight looks like and the implications of it. I feel like I'm repeating myself through a lot of these reviews, so I'll just speed through a couple points. The acting is great. I think this is a well-written and well-paced story. While I mentioned him before, I really want to focus in on the cinematography of Roger Deakins. The photography in this film is fantastic. It's so crisp, and their use of light or lack thereof always leaves an impression. And the cinematography really makes you feel the environment. When they're shooting these desert landscapes, you can almost feel the heat. I also really like the score by Jóhann Jóhannsson, who worked with Villeneuve on Prisoners and would work with him again on Arrival. The use of distorted bass and drums really was effective in heightening the tension on certain scenes where visually not much was happening, but you felt the implications of each scene because of this music. I know I already said the acting is amazing, but Emily Blunt in particular is so good in this movie. There's a good amount of mystery relating to the supporting characters in the film, which works for the tone and for the story, but the overall effect of this was me feeling a little bit less invested in what was going on. But overall, this is a really good movie. Villeneuve's next film is 2016's Arrival. This is the Villeneuve movie that I have seen the most amount of times, and the reason for that is this is a great movie to show people. There are certain films that if I were to rank my favorite movies wouldn't even crack the top 100, but they have the quality that after watching them, after experiencing them, you find that it's an experience that you want to share with others. This is a feeling I felt after I watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or Memento in high school. And Arrival is no different. I've shown this movie to so many people, and I love experiencing it for the first time through them. Arrival is about aliens arriving on Earth and a linguist's journey to try and communicate with them. Let's start by talking about the score and the music in the film, because it's the first thing the film uses to hook the audience. The song that many associate with this movie, the violin piece that plays at the beginning and end of the film, is actually not a part of the score, but to me it feels so intrinsically linked with this movie because of how well it fits into the film. The song is Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight, which is a perfect song. However, I love the rest of the score just as much. The use of human or animalistic noises paired with traditional instruments really sets this score apart from other films, and this is yet again thanks to Jóhann Jóhannsson. Bradford Young was the cinematographer for this movie, and I think he does a really great job. I love the amount of scenes where the light was really low, but everything was still clear, and you really got to focus on the colors of the environment instead of focusing on every detail of a character's face. This movie has one of my all-time favorite shots of any film, and it's the shot where we first clearly see the alien spacecraft. The photography of the environment, the fog rolling over the hills, paired with the strikingly simple design of the alien spacecraft, just makes this shot so interesting and so exciting, especially with the music underneath. And this movie is what it is because of Amy Adams' performance in it. She has to navigate such complex experiences and emotions, and she effortlessly brings the audience through that with her. Lastly, I'll bring up the edit, which I think deserves particular praise in this film. Again, this movie is as impactful as it is because of its ability to slowly dole out information to the audience. This compliment pairs with screenwriting, but the edit shows so much of this information visually through its connection of shots. And this enhances your viewing whether it's your first time seeing this film or, like me, you've seen it many times. Next, in 2017, Villeneuve directed Blade Runner 2049. And this was my second time watching this movie, and I enjoyed it a lot more than the first time. I've only seen the original once, and I thought it was okay, but didn't fully understand the hype around it. And I felt the same when I first watched this movie, feeling a little disconnected to the plot. A plot that's kind of hard to explain if you haven't seen the first film. Like a lot of his movies, this film deals with identity and purpose and feeling less than and trying to find meaning in one's work and in one's life. This time going to the movie, I think that the movie is a beautifully constructed piece of technical filmmaking. And it's one of the most beautifully shot films in the last 10 years. This is again thanks to Roger Deakins, who goes to a whole next level in this film. This is easily the best shot film in Villeneuve's catalog. The vibrant colors, the way they're photographed, and the way they're incorporated into this futuristic world look so amazing. And the credit also must go to the production designer Dennis Gassner, who builds such a lived-in future. However, this movie doesn't always resonate with me emotionally. I'm trying to be better at focusing more on how a movie makes me feel than trying to be analytical the whole time while I'm watching it. And while there are individual scenes and moments in this film that are super impactful, I think as a whole, the concept and the story is more fun for me to think about than it is emotionally resonant. Next, Villeneuve directed the 2021 film Dune. And the first thing I want to praise about this movie is its casting. And as somebody who read the book, I think that there isn't an actor in this movie that doesn't capture the spirit of their character from the book. And these actors' commitment to this idea and this world is what makes this movie. Best performance easily goes to Rebecca Ferguson. She can convey so much without saying a single word. Greg Fraser's cinematography was nice. I appreciate the mostly earth tones of the cinematography paired with the production design. This paired with shots that really ground the movie make this such a distinct sci-fi film. It doesn't feel like other sci-fi films. And this feeling is also enhanced by the costumes. Much of the costumes and set design seem to be relics of the past with futuristic elements sprinkled in thoughtfully. I also really like the look of the dream sequences, how those were shot, and how they had more vibrant colors or sometimes even a vintage look to them to make it very clear when Paul, the main character, was having a vision and when what we were seeing was his actual experiences. And I think that reading the book allowed me to connect to this movie more than those who haven't. A criticism I have heard about the film is that it is a bit cold and people don't get much out of it emotionally. I get where these criticisms are coming from, but a love of the world and the story going into it really makes me look past a lot of these issues and made me buy into the story more than others. The movie is a little cold and the book is even more cold and emotionally detached. It's a pretty tough read, and I think one of the reasons why I like this movie so much is that it depicted some of the visuals and some of the story elements that were beyond my grasp while reading the book. And to me, this story is really resonant and is able to move me emotionally. One criticism I had with the movie actually had to do with Timothée Chalamet's acting. I think he's a great actor and I loved him in other roles, but I think the roles that I like him in are a little bit more quiet, reserved, and thoughtful. While this wasn't an issue for the whole movie, there were moments in his performance that I didn't fully believe or buy into, and it took me out of the film at times. But other than that, I really enjoyed the movie and I'm very excited for part 2. Hi. It's me from the future. I just got back from the movie theater where I saw Dune Part 2. So this whole section where I look different and I'm wearing different clothes is because I couldn't make any of this stuff until I'd seen that movie. I've been waiting for this movie for a long time. It's the whole reason why I made this video, and I read the book. I really enjoyed the first Dune. I watched the old David Lynch Dune. So yeah, I had a lot of expectations, and honestly this movie really blew those expectations out of the water. I'm gonna start again with the cast, which got even larger with this film, and I was a fan of the new additions. I thought Austin Butler was really good in his role. He brought this crazed energy to his character, and Florence Pugh also continues to not really miss as an actor. She had a much more quiet and thoughtful performance, but I thought it was really nice and subtle. However, the actors who were present from the start were just as good in this movie. I think Timothée Chalamet was a lot better in this film. I bought every moment of his performance. Zendaya didn't really have much to do in the first movie, but I thought she developed her character well in this film, and I really liked her acting. Last, I'll mention Javier Bardem, who brought a level of earnestness to this performance that I wasn't really expecting. One thing that was even better in this film than the first was the cinematography. There was so much visual creativity in each scene. There's a scene in the film that's basically shot entirely in black and white, but the black and white looks so unique. It looks kind of like nothing I've ever seen before. The whole look of the film was great. I like the developed motif of the shallow depth of field and how that was used for the visions and for hiding information and revealing information throughout the movie. And something I mentioned about the first movie was the vision scenes, and I thought the visions in this film were even cooler. It was kind of like an excuse for the cinematography and the direction to kind of really go for it and just put bold and striking images on screen, and I really loved all of them. And yeah, Hans Zimmer killed it with this score. I love all the weird noises, and even the pieces with traditional instruments were really resonant. There's a lot more action in this film than the first one, and I thought it was handled really well. I think the choreography was well done, and I liked that they had longer takes of action with less cuts. It really sold the action and added to the tension of these scenes. With how much I liked the first film and how much I enjoyed the ideas expressed in the book, I even went back and watched the David Lynch version of Dune. I've been expecting this movie for a long time, and when I've been expecting a movie for that long, I always just get so worried it's going to disappoint me. And with this one, I was so happy to find that it was very far from a disappointment. So now that I've shared how I feel about these projects, how do they rank against each other in my eyes? I've divided the ranking into two parts, like I said. The first part being all the short films and music videos he directed, basically anything that isn't a full-length movie directed by him. And because he only directed a portion of it, the movie Cosmos is going to be in the first ranking. And the second ranking is going to be all the full-length movies that he directed himself. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and I think the ranking could change over time, especially when it gets into some of my favorite of his feature films. A lot of them were really hard to rank against each other, and I think they could rise and fall in the ranking depending on how much the movies grow on me. Okay, ranking number 1, short films, music videos, and Cosmos. At number 10, I have empirical study on the influence of sound on retinal persistence. It's scary, and it didn't work on me or the poor souls I forced to watch it. As a rating, I give it a 1 out of 10. At number 9, I have Daniel Bellinger's In Sorcellerie. You remember when Jesse from Full House made a music video? I don't know why, but this kind of reminds me of that. I'll give that one a 2 out of 10. At number 8, I have Kevin Parent's La Gisette. 2 out of 10. At number 7, I have Kevin Parent's Boomerang. This is the goofiest shit I've ever seen, but at least it kind of looks like a music video. 3 out of 10. At number 6, I have Rated R for Nudity. It's a really interesting idea for a short film, but it really didn't do much for me. 5 out of 10. At number 5, I have Cirque du Soleil's Kurar. 5 out of 10. At number 4, I have Cosmos. This was a cool idea for a project, but the look of his section was a bit dated. 6 out of 10. At number 3, I have 120 Seconds to Get Elected.
The same stable genius that said the biggest problem we had in the Revolutionary War is we didn't have enough airports.
6 out of 10. At number 2, Rewind, Fast Forward. Through pure creativity, Denis Villeneuve turned a documentary into a science fiction film. 7 out of 10. And at number 1 is Next Floor. This was simple, super visual, great sound design, and it kind of looked like The Matrix. 8 out of 10. Okay, it's future me again. I couldn't do the feature film ranking until I had seen Dune 2, obviously, so now let's get into it. At number 11 is August 32nd on Earth, and that's because it's not a real day. 3 out of 10. At number 10 is Enemy. They should have named this movie Too Jake, Too Gyllenhaal. Like, Too Fast, Too Furious. The Fast and Furious sequel. Anyway, 6 out of 10. At number 9, I have Maelstrom. This movie's fun. You get to watch a lady dig her own grave for an hour and a half. 7 out of 10. At number 8, I have Polytechnique. It's a great filmic exercise in visual storytelling. You should definitely check it out. 8 out of 10. And number 7 is Blade Runner 2049. I like any movie with sad Ryan Gosling. 8 out of 10. And number 6 is Sakario. And this is a cool movie. The reason it is where it is on this list is because I just didn't connect with it quite as much as I connected with the movies after it. And honestly, this whole section of the list, the amount of movies that are 8 out of 10 or above, is a real testament to Denis Villeneuve's consistency as a filmmaker. But yeah, Sakario is an 8 out of 10 also. At number 5, I have Dune Part 1, 8 out of 10. At number 4 is Ons Ds, which I think is how you pronounce it. It's been a few days since I recorded the first part. But yeah, this is the most underrated film in his filmography. I think if you're gonna check out any of his foreign language films, this is the one to do it with. This is a great movie. 9 out of 10. And number 3 is Prisoners. And yeah, this is a crime film, but it's also just such an epic movie in terms of the quality of acting in every role, which is kind of unique in the crime genre. 9 out of 10. At number 2, I have Dune Part 2. Okay, so I kind of feel like I might regret this because I do have a history of recency bias. I think right after I've seen a film in theaters is probably when I'm gonna love the film the most. That's not always true. Sometimes films do grow on me, but I really did love this movie, and I think it's such a technical masterpiece. It's so cool to look at. The sets were amazing. The costumes were amazing. It also had great pacing. But yeah, really, really good movie. Great sequel. I hope they make more. 10 out of 10. And at number 1, I have Arrival, which is a 10 out of 10, and me from the past is going to tell you why it is Denis Villeneuve's best movie. It's interesting that Villeneuve has turned into one of the best directors working in the science fiction genre because his films started from such a grounded place. He started out making dramas, very human and simple, grounded stories, and then slowly started moving into the science fiction space. And I think the reason that Arrival is his best film is because it's the perfect blend of those two genres. It has the perfect mix of grounded humanity and a very human story, and the science fiction is a perfect complement to it and adds so much to that human story. This video was really fun for me to make. I like that it was an excuse for me to do a deep dive that I've always wanted to do. Denis Villeneuve has had a huge impact on my cinematic taste and my desire to make movies. And I started this project because he had made some of my favorite films, and it felt really weird being as critical as I was about his early work, but I felt okay because these projects were just stepping stones for him. Projects that would lead him towards achieving cinematic mastery. But anyway, this video is so fucking long, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you like this, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me. Also, let me know in the comments which film of his is your favorite. If you'd like, even write out your whole ranking. I'd love to hear about it. Anyway, thanks for watching.